What's going on, chess friends? It's Rafi Chaudhry here, and in today's video, we're playing a live chess game against an opponent here with the username Marcour26, rated 1971 here on Lichess. So let's get started. So the game started with the English opening and symmetrical variation with c4, c5. Then I played g3. He played knight c6. I played bishop g2. And now he played g6. So now we're officially in the symmetric variation of the English opening. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed, with the move knight to f3. So he plays bishop to g7, which is also very typical and standard for this kind of opening. So now comes the move pawn to d3. Plays knight to f6. So now I'm going to go ahead and develop this other knight to c3. Plays d6. I'm going to go ahead and play the move rook to d1. I don't want to castle just yet because I have this pet line I like to play with knight d2, knight f1, knight e3 to knight d5. So I'm hoping that he would play e5 at some point so I can continue with that plan. But for now, let's go ahead and play rook b1 and continue our queen set expansion. If he plays e5, I'll play knight d2. He can play e5, he can castle, he can play bishop to g4, bishop to f5. He can play a5, play rook b8. He can play d5 even, actually. So they're all definitely possible moves here. So let's go ahead and continue that expansion with a3. And maybe d5 will come next. Okay, he plays e6, interesting idea. So now I'm thinking that this might be a good idea to play either bishop to g5 and trade off the bishop for the knight, maybe, is one idea, or to castle would be another idea. Let's castle at this point in the game. So the idea is to play rook to pawn to b4 very quickly and start playing b5, a4, a5, a6, things like that. Try to, take control of these light squares and start attacking black's queen side here. Black's idea might be to play knight to d7 with f5 to follow. Eventually, he may play moves like g5 and g4 and f4 as well. Those are all possible ideas for black. So yeah, he's preparing maybe e5 here sometime soon. So we can now use this time to go ahead and kickstart our expansion on this side of the board with b4. Now we always have to be careful about these discoveries with this knight anytime, because that does launch an attack from black on that side of the board. So he plays b6, which does open up this diagonal now. So I wonder if we can somehow take advantage of it with a move like this. If he takes, then we take this guy, and I wonder if that's immediately possible. Knight to e5. If he plays bishop d7 or b7, we take the c6 knight. D takes c5, then we have bishop takes c6, forking the two rooks. If knight takes, then we have bishop takes a8, getting the rook. I feel like it does work in this position. Let's go ahead and play it. So we have launched a discovered attack on the knight on the c6 square, and I'm not seeing any good way for him to be able to defend that knight. Not sure. Okay, so he does take that. So now we can go ahead and grab this rook. And he may play a move like d5, try to trap my bishop in here. I'm not sure. But if he doesn't do that, then I'll just retreat the bishop back to g2, and I'll have a, yeah, he did definitely try to trap it as we figured he might. If I take here, he takes back, and I take with the knight, he takes back with the knight. It takes, he takes, knight takes, bishop takes, queen takes. I'm losing a piece there. So that's certainly not going to work. Somehow I need to escape with my bishop now. But how do we escape with the bishop is the question. I could play a bishop to f4 right now, gaining tempo on his knight. Kind of like that move actually, because his knight doesn't have that many good squares to go to. If he goes to g4, then I might even get an h3 in that position. Let's go ahead and play this tempo move first. And if he plays d4, I'm happy to take the knight, and he takes on c3. I'll take back with the bishop, and I'll free up this bishop, and that'll be a pretty fun position to play. Also, I could have actually played takes on c5 followed by rook to b8 if he takes back with the b pawn. That would have actually not been a bad idea, but I can probably still do that. If he plays knight g4, I probably won't play h3 actually. I'll probably take on c5 or d5 maybe even. He's a pretty solid player. Definitely a pretty solid player. I was thinking about chess the other day. I was thinking about some chess puns that me and my friend used to make back in the day. Like we would say things like, I move my king back and forth. I move my king back and forth. Like different things like that we made up. Like mimicking that song, I whip my hair back and forth. If you guys remember that back in the mid 2000s, song came out, late 2000s. All right, so now that he plays the knight to d7, he does block his queen, so perhaps we can now actually take on d5. If he takes, then we can take with a knight. But I think he might play the move e5. And if he plays knight f takes d5, then we have knight takes, and we're getting our knight out of the danger zone. So now we have to watch for moves like this. That's actually really what I'm more concerned about, is a move like knight to h5, which hits our bishop and also discovers its attack right here on this knight. Should have thought about this move a little bit more before playing it right away. Yeah, I figured he might play that. But I think to this we can respond with bishop to d2, honestly. Which protects the bishop, and now his knight is on the rim. So there's another chess pun, or saying, the knight on the rim is dim and its chances are slim. So you got to remember that. If you put the knights on the side of the board, they don't really control as many squares as they would in the middle of the board. This knight, for example, controls 1, 2, 3, 4 squares, versus this knight, this is actually kind of also on the rim, but a little bit less so than this knight. The knight controls 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4 to 6 already, just from being one file away from the edge of the board. And knight in the center of the board, say for example, knight here would have controlled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then there's 7 and 8 squares. So as you can see, the knight's power obviously goes up the closer to the center that it comes. So you always want to keep your knights centralized as much as possible, unless there's a good reason to put them on the side of the board. In this case, there was a good reason. I guess he wanted to attack the bishop, but after the bishop moved to d2, my bishop is still well placed, but his knight no longer is well placed at this point on h5. And I'm defending the c3 knight as well. So now he has to come up with some creative ideas. I'm thinking maybe he can play bishop to a6 or something, hitting this bishop. But then again, I have simple moves like bishop to c6, hitting the rook, or pinning the knight to the rook, rather. And I don't know what compensation he has for the rook that he lost, and then now he's about to lose maybe another pawn here as well. Not sure. I've also heard this chess pun, something like chess players mate better or something like that. They're just really silly, but just fun to see them. Yeah, if you guys have any puns, chess puns, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to learn about some of them. Um, you know, I don't know that many honestly, but I know that I get asked by chess players all the time, "Hey, do you know any sayings?" Like especially kids that I used to coach, they would ask me like, "Coach Rafi, do you know any like chess puns or chess related sayings, things like that?" And typically I didn't, so I just usually said, "Nope, I don't." All right, so now that he moves the knight to e5, I wonder now if I can go ahead and take on e6, followed by bishop to g2, because I really want to get the bishop out of that hole that I placed it inside of. Or maybe we can open up this rook first with this move. Again, I'm kind of worried about bishop a6 because I don't have a good square for my bishop after he plays that. I guess I can play bishop b7 and then follow it up with pawn to c6. Yeah, that definitely would make sense. Now I'm wondering if rook b8 works here, hitting that bishop, but then he can play queen to c7, hitting my rook. And that probably will actually waste some time for me. So whenever there's another chess saying in principle, not a pun, but a chess saying that says chess wisdom that says something like whenever you're up material and you have a winning position, don't simplify, rather keep it simple. Simplifying means like you're forcing trades to happen. Don't do that, but just try to keep the position simple. Don't let your opponent create any sort of counterplay. So I don't want to complicate anything. I just want to take the pawn and then put the bishop on g2 and just say, hey, I've got an extra exchange. I've got an extra pawn now. So what do you have to show me for that? He has to prove that to me. So that's the approach that I'm going to stick with here. So I'm going to go ahead and just take this e6 pawn, and whichever way he captures, probably he'll capture with bishop. I'm just going to retreat my bishop to g2, and again, I have an extra exchange. I have my position is intact. I have an extra pawn. I don't see what black has long term to show for compensation. Not sure. So a simple retreat of the bishop to g2, I think will definitely keep the position very solid for me here. So now, after like I have this good structure, the only potential weakness I might have is considered in this position might be like my pawn on a3, which is kind of isolated and it's a side pawn. But I think there's no way that he can easily attack this pawn. First of all, and second of all, he has a lot of weaknesses too. He's got the c5 pawn as a weakness, and he's got the a7 pawn as a weakness as well. On top of being down, a couple of an exchange and a pawn. So if like we can maybe try to gang up on this c5 pawn. Another idea might be to go ahead and play the rook to maybe like some square like b7 and start hitting the a7 pawn and start hitting f7 and take control of the 7th rank and start a 7th rank penetration. But I think with the two bishops on the board, that might be a little bit tricky right now. I think it might be a little hard to get that going. So I may want to exchange off the bishops, or one of the bishops at least, and then start the penetration process with rook to b7. In the meantime, I think we can gang up on the c5 pawn with moves like maybe knight to e4 to c5, bishop to e3 at hitting c5. There's also ideas of knight a4 to c5 with rook c1 to c5, then bishop e3 to c5. As you can see, there's different pawns, different pieces of mine that can gang up on this c5 pawn, which has to be defended only by pieces. There's really no pawns that can defend this c5 anymore. So he plays bishop to f5. I think he's trying to go for some sort of idea of c4, trying to undermine this pawn so that it'll be attack on the rook. And this might be a good time for us to play knight to e4 to stop that idea from happening, and also to actually have knight to e4. He may actually still be able to play c4. Okay. We can also offer an exchange of bishops here, but then he can play bishop h3 and have to bring the bishop back to g2, so I don't like that too much. This might be a good time to go ahead and penetrate with the rook to b7, actually. I also have this idea, if he ever moves the knight away, I can maybe go for those kind of ideas as well. So let's start by going ahead and moving our rook into the action now. So rook to b7. Now if he plays c4, I'll just take it, and if knight takes, then I'll play something like bishop to e3, offer an exchange of queens, and hopefully that'll make this process a lot easier for us. So we're hitting a7 now, and also my idea is to play queen to a4, hitting the pawn on a7 as well. And also with queen to a4, there's some subtle ideas of playing g4 at some point if the knight were to move away, say to d7, or maybe somewhere else. Okay, so if he plays the c4 move right away, so first of all, we can just take. It's definitely an option. Nothing wrong with taking, but I'm wondering if there's something better than just taking it. And we can take, and if I play e4 here, we might be able to play bishop to c8. I think the best move here is to just capture this guy. Actually, after e4, bishop c8. Yeah, I don't like this idea of opening up this d file, because I think that might give me a little bit of problems, because my bishop will be awkwardly placed after that. So let's not. I don't really have much options though besides taking the pawn. Should have been more careful about this. I should have probably moved my queen, honestly. Could play queen a4 here and just ignore that and let him take. Hmm. Takes on c4, knight takes c4. He's hitting my bishop, and if the bishop were to move, then I've got some issues. My pieces are getting all tied up. I have to play knight b1 and stuff. It's just not a fun position, really. Hmm. Thinking maybe bishop to e4 might be a possibility here. Maybe just sacrificing a pawn just to get the. Yeah, let's go for that. I think taking this is just way too risky. There's just way too many possibilities here. I think I have to just give up the pawn and go into a position that I feel a little bit more comfortable and less a little less open. Because I mean, all these files are going to be opening up if I allow him to take this. It's just too much pressure on d2 and pinning the queen, and it's just really annoying. We have to watch the time of 7 minutes to his 10 minutes, and it's a no increment time control, so we have to be very careful here. So if he takes the bishop, I might actually just take back with the pawn, honestly. But I think he'll play bishop h3. I have a feeling he might play bishop h3. Wow, he just took there. Interesting idea. Now I can probably use this time to take on f5 first. And mess up his pawn structure completely. Yeah, now I feel much more comfortable in the position. He can take on e2, but I can take with the knight. Now he does have this really annoying pawn on d3, but I think I can just pick up that pawn. Yeah. I believe I should take this way now. So he's still up the pawn, but I've got a pretty solid. Oh gosh, there's knight f3 check. Oh, no way. Missed that. Dang, but it doesn't work, I think, because if he tries to go for the bishop here, we can save this bishop. So knight f3 though. King g2, knight takes here, hitting the rook though. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is dangerous. Dangerous stuff right here. And he also has moves like this. Oh man. This is pretty serious now. This is pretty serious for sure. Oh man, we're in trouble. We're definitely in trouble now. Shoot. Ran us into some strange trouble here. Just a little bit of carelessness and boom, all of a sudden the game is now, I don't know, he might even be better at this point. We were up so much material. If he takes with the knight, I can probably play this kind of move, honestly. Yeah, I wonder if I can play rook to d7, picking up this guy. But he has queen to a8 check. Oof. Dang. This is a very, very annoying situation now. I think I'm going to save my bishop. But then he can check and pick up my rook. That's so annoying. Wow. Wow. That's crazy how this came out of nowhere. All these tactics came out of absolutely nowhere, and we were just talking about simplifying the game. It's crazy. Man. Wow. Well, I don't even know which piece to save at this point. Not even sure. Hmm. If he picks up my rook, though, I can probably pick up his knight. So what's the best square to put the bishop is the question. Maybe bishop to c2, perhaps. If you place check, you have f3. You can take the rook on f1. And this is just so complicated now. Goodness. Let's go ahead and save this guy first. Because if he plays check and I play f3 and he takes my rook on f1, I'll probably, as next move my bishop away on f5. And then his knight hopefully might, well, gosh, no, the knight won't be trapped. I just realized he has knight e3 check because after f3, the e3 square is no longer protected. Man, that's crazy. Just so many tactics are favoring him all of a sudden. Wow. Insanity. I think we pretty much have to play this move now. Absolutely no choice. And then after he takes the rook on f1, I have to take with the queen. Otherwise, he has knight e3 check. Ugh, gosh. Disaster. Total disaster. I don't know if this was a good move either. I'm playing very fast because I'm low on time, but I think we might run into some issues with the queen and forking the rook and bishop. Just so many pieces are on pre right now, but I'm trying to go after this f5 pawn so I can get some sort of attack going. Probably can play knight f6 even. He's up 3 points right now. Man, that's crazy. We were completely winning this game a second ago. It's a terrible mistake. Terrible, terrible play from me. He basically has an extra whole bishop extra. Yep, just like I imagined, he's gonna probably run my rook out of square, so I can't protect the knight anymore. With his let's play here. If bishop f8, then I can play knight rook takes f6 actually. So low on time even, and this is a tough position, super tough position. Oh, he's threatening knight to e3 check, but I think I can take on f5 and stop that idea. If I am able to, if it's possible, I may chop off that bishop on g7 to make his king a little bit more vulnerable, and then get my queen into action here right away. Some sort of queen to like c4 with queen to g4 type of ideas. You know, I need to get those rolling right off the bat. I definitely need to keep my knight though. Actually, I don't know if I want to necessarily trade these two pieces because the knight and queen are a really good combination. And I need that sort of trickiness in this position to try to play for some tactics here. That's the only way we can really win this game is just some sort of tactical, you know, overlook by our opponent. If he does that, couldn't I just take this now? Doesn't that give me a free knight? I think we just got our piece back. Still a very, very tough position, but I think we are up a piece right now. Or no, sorry, we've equalized on the material. He's up. We're up +1 right now, according to the computer here, material-wise. So I think hopefully we can play queen to d3, consolidate our pieces, trade off the knight for the bishop, and then go for an attack maybe. Queen to d3 also protects a3 and protects the rook on e3. Knight's protected by g4 pawn, which we can give some support with king h3. He plays this check. He wants to take this pawn next move. Should we offer? No, we can't offer any trades because he's playing rook to here with devastating attacks. Oh, we've got a minute left. Oh gosh, what am I doing? Oh, this is a tough position. Tough position. Let's play a check first. Let's go ahead and attack. Stop this attack. There is a perpetual idea, I guess, some sort of perpetual idea now. Check, check, back and forth. Wonder if I'll go for that, considering I'm so low on time. If he takes on a3, I'm playing queen to d4 with checkmate on g7 idea coming. Queen d4 now, trading off the queens. Do I want to take, yeah, knight, for sure, knight. No, not the knight, the rook. Definitely the rook. Oh, he doesn't. Now, can we not checkmate? Oh gosh, that wasn't mate. Ah, shoot. Oh goodness. Oh my gosh. It's crazy. Now that's got to be a mate. That was so lucky. Unbelievable. Unbelievable how lucky this was. Wow. Completely lost. Completely lost game. But we just got so extremely lucky. I thought I had a checkmate there in the last second, but there was no mate there with the rook blocking. So I don't know what I was thinking there. But I'm glad this little mating pattern. This is why doing tactical puzzles helps a lot, because this kind of pattern that I saw with 30 seconds on the clock. I mean, if I wasn't, very well versed in the chess tactics and doing the puzzles all the time, I don't think I would have found this kind of tactic that quickly. So puzzles definitely help in these kind of figuring out these kind of positions. So let's look at this position and let's look at this game and go through this with full analysis and see what we can come up with. So computer just requested a computer analysis so we can get some feedback from the engine on how we could have done better in this game. So let's get started while that's going on. Okay, so we started the game with c4, which is the English opening. He played c5, which now runs into the symmetric variation of the English. So g3, played knight to c6. I played to bishop to g2, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, d3, knight to f6, all standard opening moves, very common moves, been played many times. I think black can play e6, he can play e5. There's lots of different types of ideas he can go after, but I think the move that he played, knight to f6, is pretty logical as well. Played knight to c3. Here, he played d6, and I didn't want to castle right away because I really was hoping he would play a move like e5, after which I could play knight to d2. So if he plays e5, I play rook to b1, and if he plays e5 in this position, I believe knight d2 is a move here. It's a playable move. So yeah, the computer finds the move now as well, knight d2. The idea is to play knight d2. So say he castles, knight to f1. So he plays, I don't know, computer suggesting a6, knight to e3, rook b8, knight to d5. That's the idea. Try to really control these light squares here. It's, again, like I said, it's a pet line. It's not the main line of this opening by any means, but it's something that I've often played and had some success with it. So after knight c3 d6, I played rook b1 again, trying to get him to play the c5 move, but he didn't play that actually. He went ahead and played castles. After which I continued my typical queenside expansion. That's as is typical in the English opening, which is to play moves like b4, b5, and just really control these light squares and launch this queenside attack, because the pawn chain that I have is pointing towards the queenside, and that's how I know that I need to be attacking on the queenside. So yeah, as you can see that, like, a lot of times white will actually play the bishop to here and exchange the bishop for the knight on f6, because the knight guards these two central light squares. So once the knight is gone, we have even a better grip on these light squares in this part of the board, in the center and all the way going up to the queen side. We just want to control these squares as heavily as possible. So played a3 and he played e6. That's when I gave up my dreams of the whole knight d2 and f1 to d5 eventually idea, because I know that's not going to happen anymore. So that's when I went ahead and castled. And our opponent now plays rook to e8. I don't know how sound this move is, honestly, because if he's playing rook to e8, then maybe he wants to play e5. But if he was going to play e5, he could have just played the last move. Why would he? Why would he wait for that? I think a better move than playing rook to e8 might have been to move like a5, like the computer is suggesting, slowing down my queenside expansion with b4. If he plays a5, I can still get in this move b4. I'd have to reroute my knight to a1 to c2, and then use the knight to support my b4 expansion. But by then, a lot of times black has some ideas of playing even a4 to try to thwart this pawn advance from happening. So those ideas obviously exist in the position, but I don't think in this particular position right now he could have done that, because then I could have just taken the a4 pawn with a knight. But that's the one idea that I've seen before in these kind of structures. So after castles, he plays rook to e8, and I went ahead and continued with b4 as planned. He played b6, and I don't like this move at all, because first of all, it's just losing material right away. Apart from that, though, it's just, why would you open up this diagonal, this long diagonal that I'm playing for, and make your rook so vulnerable to this bishop to begin with? And what does b6 even do? Like c5 was already protected by d5 or d6 pawn, and so there was no need to play this move b6. I'm not sure exactly what it does, but he obviously missed a tactic, which is something that I can execute right away, which is knight to e5. And it doesn't matter how he captures on e5 or what he does, I'm winning some material at this point for sure. So the best thing to do is to capture the knight on e5, which he does. So then I picked up the rook, now I'm up to exchange. And then he plays d5, which is a really good move. I think d5 tries to block in that bishop on a8 and cause a lot of trouble very soon. So then I went ahead and took on, I played the move, tempo gaining move, bishop to f4. Plays knight to e to d7. And this loses another pawn, if I'm not mistaken now. So, c takes, I took the pawn on d5, but I could have taken the one on c5 as well. So after this takes on d5, he plays knight to h4, h5 rather. So computer is saying I can actually go ahead and play d takes e6, but I don't like that move. I think I want to keep my structure intact with bishop to d2. Then he plays this move, knight to e5, at which point I went ahead and took here. He took back, and here's where I started playing a little bit inaccurate. I should have understood, like, there's some serious potential power behind this pawn to c4 move. I should have been a little bit more aware and of the possibilities of him pushing the pawn to c4 at some point. So I don't know if I played most accurate moves here. So I took here, and he took, and now he's hitting my bishop with the tempo. I'd return with the bishop. Sure enough, he plays c4, or no, he doesn't play c4. He plays bishop to f5 first. Again, here I had the option of untangling my pieces a little bit, knowing that there's this pin on the queen that might happen after c4, so I should have played queen to a4 move. But the move I played, actually, the computer likes it for many reasons. It likes rook to b7, actually. But rook b7, he plays c4. And I could have just taken on... Interesting, I could have taken on c4, actually, without much problems. I could have also sacrificed on d4 and followed up with knight to b5. I didn't even consider that idea. Interesting. So I played bishop to e4, and computer, it doesn't like that move too much at all, because now there's some tactical situations. So after that, I made a pretty, well, I took on f5, and he took here. And here's where I really messed up. I should have taken with the queen, which looks scary because it lines up the knight, or queen and rook together with the knight discovery coming, but he doesn't have any really solid discoveries to really win material. So I should have looked into this a little bit deeper than just automatically capturing with a knight. But I totally missed the knight f3. Absolutely missed this knight f3 completely. I don't know why I wasn't paying attention to the fact that after e-pawn is gone, f3 is completely undefended now. So after this move, knight to e2, I'm sure the computer will show a huge loss. Not a huge loss, but a pretty sizable advantage for black. But it doesn't show that. It shows that this position is still pretty equal. Interesting. he plays check, and I played king to g2. Probably is also a blunder. I played a lot of blunders at this point, and I'm completely, yeah, totally lost after this move. Absolutely lost. I do agree. What was the difference from g2 versus h2 though? I wonder. After I play king h1. Oh, it allows for bishop here, so I can block the check with bishop g2. Dang, I didn't even consider that. Yeah. So he took here. Oh wow! After taking the bishop like this, apparently this position is even. I don't understand how this is equal. No, no idea. I missed bishop d7. The computer is finding some really creative ideas here. Bishop d7 blocking the path from the queen to guard this guy's. And if I take if he takes this, then I have this move. No, I don't. Just kidding. I would lose my queen. And there's some interesting tactics going on here. After bishop d7, knight takes f1, king takes f1, rook here, queen here. Oh, I'm threatening this idea now. Wow. Bishop f8, bishop c6. And we've got a pretty interesting game going on here. Sorry. Okay, so that's interesting. I didn't consider all this. I played rook d7, which is still losing, I'm sure. But I was just trying to play for some sort of tactical stuff here, just some sort of blunder from my opponent. So queen a8 check. I played king, I believe, to g. Oops. Played f3. I could have played king g1 also. Again, I didn't consider king g1 too much because I saw they would run into this knight f3, but so he took on f1. And I had to take it back with the queen. And he took this, and I have absolutely nothing going on for myself. That's absolutely losing position for white here. No compensation. I'm absolutely down a full piece with worse king side, king safety, and everything. And again, this tangles up my pieces even more, I think. But I just played this just to hope for some sort of tactics with f5 and things like that coming. I think if he played accurately, he could have probably won another piece right now. For example, like the computer line that's showing up here with queen c8, queen b5. I'm sure there was some sort of tactical ideas here that he could have implemented. Plays this, and I played rook d6. And then here he makes a fatal mistake. He plays oh, not here. I'm sorry. Here he played knight g4, which is an interesting idea because he's threatening this idea knight e3. But I can now take the pawn and defend this from this threat. But I'm still losing here. But after this move, he totally messes it up. After this, I am now just getting the pawn. I think he forgot that the queen was pinning the pawn, so I couldn't take the knight. But after he moves that, I am now ready to take the pawn on g4, knight on g4, which is exactly what I did. And now I've got quite a bit of an advantage according to the computer, and I do agree. So yeah, I didn't. It wasn't so easy in the game to convert this advantage, of course, but I think that with a lot of time and proper play and technique, I could have converted this into hopefully a win. So he plays check, and I think I played king h3 because I knew that there wasn't really any ideas. My king is pretty safe on h3. So here I thought he would play rook to e2, and I think that's what he did. Yeah, he did play rook to e2. And wow, there was a mate in 8, and I missed that. So after this move, I did play rook to check. He had check. Wow, there was literally a mate. I didn't even see knight h6 followed by queen takes f7. But I defended that. Again, with just 52 seconds on the clock, to see a mate in 7 like this, I mean, it's not so easy. So instead I defended. Played queen to f6. Now I knew I needed to kind of secure my advantage. And again, I could have played rook to, oh wow. I had multiple ideas here to win. But I chose this option and giving away all my advantage. That's crazy. Rook takes f8, king takes f8, queen c5 check, rook to e7, queen takes e7, queen takes, knight takes, king takes. Wow, I have a winning king pawn in game. Definitely didn't consider some of these ideas, but I had 45 seconds, so not too much time to think about all those deep calculations. So after this queen trade, I thought he was going to trade down, but he chose to keep the queens on the board. For some reason, he thought he had an advantage. But here, I thought I had checkmate, but I didn't have checkmate. I thought rook takes f8 followed by queen d8 is checkmate, but it's not. He can block with the rook, and I totally forgot that. But regardless, rook takes f8 was the right move. King takes, but now instead of queen to d8 check, I should have played queen to c5 check. Because then my check threat is to, then after queen c5, my threat is to play here check, and if rook to blocks then I can take it and just checkmate. Wow, totally missed that. Instead played here, played rook to e8, and I played this quickly, going for some sort of idea of a queen h8. And here he could have just played king to g8 and he would have been totally fine, and the game position would have been probably equal, but he missed it and he played this move. But now I do have checkmate. Check, check, and mate. So yeah, so let's see. 7 blunders from me and 5 blunders from my opponent, and I still won. That's crazy. That's usually not the case. And lots of mistakes in this game. We played like a couple of monkeys, but I think overall, it was a very interesting game, and there was definitely some tactics and time pressure definitely played a role in this game. But I'm just very happy and glad that we got to pull out, and we were able to pull out that win in the last second, given his mistake of missing the queen h8 move in the last position here. So that was good. All right, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the discussion on the chess puns. If you guys have any more of those puns, I would love to learn some more from you guys. If you have any questions about the game, leave it in the comments. If there's any ideas that you guys have for future videos, love to learn those as well. Thank you. Take care. And it's Rafi Chaudhary signing out from Lichess.